That was Led Zeppelin with a song entitled The Battle of Evermore, a tune that features many references to the Prince of Thieves. Before that, we heard another clip from the classic Bugs Bunny cartoon Rabbit Hood. We also heard Kate Bush, the red-headed queen of the Pixies herself, with a tune entitled Lionheart, a song that is essentially an ode to the spirit of British defiance throughout history. And we started the set with Philip Pickett doing his interpretation of a medieval tune known as Ci passa por su strada. She walks through the strada. Welcome back to God Rock Radio. I'm Jack the Agnostic Garcia, and on today's program, we've been exploring the legendary outlaw hero, Robin Hood. We left off examining the possible historical candidates for the legendary outlaw hero and the many, many different references involved. Well, in this, our final talk segment, we're going to get into the many, many different film adaptations of Robin Hood. All right. Well, there's early primitive cinematic adaptations in 1903, 1908, and 1910, but the first real great Robin Hood movie is from 1922. It's simply titled Robin Hood. It's directed by Alan Dwan and features the great Douglas Fairbanks as a rather gymnastic outlaw hero. Fairbanks' natural athleticism and obvious enjoyment at dressing up makes this one of the great Robin Hood movies. The film features plenty of action and daring stunts that are done by Fairbanks himself. There's impressive sets and costumes. It's a very elaborate, extravagant production and spectacular film. Robin Hood from 1922 is essentially one of the best of the silent nitrate era swashbucklers. Now, Fairbanks was one of the most creative producers in old Hollywood. He's involved in every aspect of the film. He works on the script himself. He employs top designers, cameramen, directors. And Fairbanks creates a series of memorable costume/adventure films from around 1920 to 1929. Essentially, the plot of the 1922 Robin Hood is, Robin departs for the Crusades with Richard the Lionhearted as the Earl of Huntingdon and returns to England as the Hooded One in order to save King Richard's throne from the sinister Sheriff of Nottingham and, of course, the evil Prince John. Now, the great Wallace Berry plays King Richard, and Alan Hale, the father of the skipper on Gilligan's Island, portrays Little John in the first of 4 appearances as Little John. He essentially is the Little John for the ages. Now, this film essentially sets the standard. Well, that standard is met and surpassed by The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, directed by Michael Curtiz. This is one of the great, timeless popcorn-munching movies, a rollicking Technicolor tale of the legendary outlaw hero. This film is regarded as the swashbuckler of all swashbucklers. Now, basically, the justice-minded Saxon knight battles the Normans, Prince John, and gallantly romances the Lady Marion. Now, there's grand castle sets involved here, lush forest photography, an ample display of the then huge $2 million+ budget. The film is essentially a combination of various Robin Hood legends and the D. Coven Smith opera. Now, Errol Flynn brims with charm and bravado in this film. He is in his prime in this movie. He's graceful as a panther. He does his own stunts. There's advanced tree and wall climbing here. There's intricate swordplay. And Errol Flynn is the greatest Robin Hood ever. No one compares to Errol Flynn. Now, the rest of the cast gives zestful, amazing performances. You have Olivia de Havilland as a rather cold and bitchy, yet ultimately sympathetic Maid Marian. You have Claude Rains as a dastardly Prince John. You have Basil Rathbone as a convincingly evil Sir Guy of Gisborne. And Alan Hale returns 16 years after the Fairbanks film for his second and best turn as Little John. Alan Hale essentially makes camaraderie. He turns it into a high art. All right, this is a really, really great movie. If you have never seen this film, please do. You will love it. Now, The Adventures of Robin Hood spawns 2 unofficial sequels at a different studio. Now, the Errol Flynn film is from Warner Brothers, but there's 2 unofficial sequels to The Adventures of Robin Hood produced by Columbia Studios. The first one is The Bandit of Sherwood Forest. This is directed by George Sherman. This is 1945 and features Cornell Wilde. Then there's The Rogues of Sherwood Forest. This is 1950, directed by Gordon Douglas. That features John Derrick. Now, both films feature Alan Hale returning as Little John. Both movies have impressive sets and costumes on a pretty modest budget. They're entertaining Technicolor programmers that feature great British character actors. For example, Henry Daniell and Paul Kavanagh. Now, these movies focus on the sons of Robin Hood, who carry on the fight after their father's demise. The concept of the eternal champion is central to both of these films. One Robin Hood dies, and another Robin Hood takes his place. Now, Cornell Wilde, well, in the 1940s and 50s, he's in a series of lower-budgeted swashbuckler films, and he has occasional important roles in A-quality productions with good directors. For example, Leave Her to Heaven, 1945, directed by Douglas Sirk, or Forever Amber, 1948, directed by Otto Preminger. But during the 1960s and early 1970s, Wilde becomes a triple threat, an actor, writer, director, and he creates a series of modest-budgeted but impressive action films. For example, The Naked Prey, 1966, a terrific movie. Now, John Derrick is best remembered for his love affairs / marriages to Ursula Andress, Linda Evans, and Bo Derek. Mr. John Derrick loved the ladies. All right, let's move on to The Sword of Sherwood Forest. This is in 1960. This is produced by Hammer Films in England and is directed by the great Terence Fisher. Now, anyone familiar with Hammer Films knows that their movies are very, very atmospheric, and they usually feature great production values on very, very modest budgets. Well, The Sword of Sherwood Forest features a good script and a fast pace. There's a great cast involved here. You have Richard Greene as Robin Hood. You have Peter Cushing, the great Peter Cushing, as the Sheriff of Nottingham. You have the great Nigel Green as Little John. And you have a very young Oliver Reed as a very cruel nobleman. Well, there's plenty of swordplay in this film. There's nice action scenes. And there's a sincere respect for the old legends. Now, Peter Cushing is excellent as the Sheriff of Nottingham. He's truly evil. And Richard Greene is very, very good as Robin Hood. He's quite familiar with the role of Robin Hood because he played Robin Hood on British television for 7 or 8 years. I can't remember exactly how long it was, but it's at least 7 years. On a very, very popular program that was syndicated all over the world. Check out The Sword of Sherwood Forest if you can. It's a really, really good movie. All right, let's move on to Robin and Marian from 1976. This is directed by Richard Lester, who's best remembered for the Beatle movies he made, Hard Day's Night, Help, and the film he made with John Lennon, How I Won the War. Well, the plot to this film, it takes a different spin on the Robin Hood legend. Robin essentially returns after being away for many, many years in the Crusades. Upon Richard of Lionheart's death, he comes back to England. Well, he's reunited with Maid Marian, who's now an abbess and healer. Well, their dormant feelings are reawakened, and Robin battles the Sheriff of Nottingham one last time. There's elements of sadness in this film. Sherwood Forest is symbolic, reflective of its aging hero. The forest is listless, gray, tired, abandoned, robbed of all its magic. Sean Connery is excellent as an aging Robin, and Robert Shaw, the great character actor, is absolutely amazing as the Sheriff of Nottingham. The sheriff essentially respects Robin, but must destroy him. All right, the film also features Audrey Hepburn as Marion, who poisons Robin after the final battle with the Sheriff of Nottingham because Robin is crippled and will never be the man he was. The man dies, but the legend lives on. This is a pretty good movie. You should check it out if you get the chance. All right, let's move on to some more contemporary versions of Robin Hood. Let's get into Robin Hood, the Prince of Thieves. This is 1991, directed by Kevin Reynolds. Well, this is essentially a revisionist, politically correct version of the legend that features a zombie-like Kevin Costner, who infuses Robin with quiet thoughtfulness. He's a thinker in this film, not a doer or a leader. The movie also features Alan Rickman in a really great performance as a wickedly crazed Sheriff of Nottingham. Rickman is the best thing in the movie and easily overpowers the rest of the cast. Now, the movie also features Morgan Freeman as a civilized Moor who travels along with Robin and is perplexed by the ignorance of England and its people. And the movie also features Mary Elizabeth Antonio, who's very lovely to look at, but is a horrible actress and gives a really, really bad performance. She is the worst maid Marion ever. Now, the film features nice photography. It looks good. It has a gritty, morbid atmosphere. It's a dark picture of the Middle Ages, but the movie doesn't add up. Political correctness does not belong in a Robin Hood film. And every time the stars, Costner and Mastri Antonio, are on screen, the movie sinks. I do not recommend this film, even though there's some really good performances here. It's not a really good movie. All right, let's move on to another Robin Hood movie that was released on the very same year, 1991. This is directed by John Irvin. It's known simply as Robin Hood. That features Patrick Bergin, Uma Thurman, and Jürgen Perschner. This was originally planned as a theatrical production, but the film was scaled down for cable television because the producers felt that the movie couldn't compete with the Costner version. Well, this version of Robin Hood is much darker than the usual classic cinematic tale. Bergen is a very well-developed Robin Hood. Thurman is a graceful, mischievous, rebellious, sexually active maid Marion. She dresses as a boy and loses her virginity to Robin in the back of a wagon. The driver thinks Robin has just deflowered a boy, not a girl. Now, there's a sense of sexual tension between Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham, Bergen and Perschner. There's hints of bisexuality in this movie. And, well, the Sheriff of Nottingham is well-rounded, more so than usual. He's more complex than usual. This is a far more interesting film than the Costner version. And let me tell you, snippets from this movie are missing. They've been cut over time, especially the references to bisexuality in the movie. They've been edited. Perhaps they think I haven't noticed, but there are at least 4 or 5 minutes missing from the movie. And I'm trying to track down an original copy from 1991 and try and get those missing minutes back in there. All right, let's move on to a more recent adaptation of Robin Hood, directed by Ridley Scott. This film features nice photography, nice mood and atmosphere, good performances that are wasted. The film is overlong. It has a ponderous, weak script. There's a lot of cliches here, and it takes way too long to get to the point. Russell Crowe is a, overfed Robin Hood, And his performance, well, kind of lacks the zest or pizzazz of Gladiator, for example. And Kate Winslet is simply not believable as a bitchy warrior marionette.